morning. I'm Sandra Bolte, grateful to be a member of the Sunday service team. My pronouns are she and her. The opening words today. They teach us to read in black and white. Truth is this, the rest false. You are whole or broken. Who you love is acceptable or not. Life tells its truths in many hues. We are taught to think in either or. To believe the teachings of Jesus or Buddha, to believe in human potential or a power beyond a single will. I am broken or I am powerful. Life embraces multiple truths, speaks of both and of and. We are taught to see in absolutes, good versus evil, male versus female, old versus young, gay versus straight. Let us see the fractions, the spectrum, the margins. Let us open our hearts to the complexity of our worlds. Let us make our lives sanctuaries to nurture our many identities. The day is coming when all will know that the rainbow world is more gorgeous than monochrome, that a river of identities can ebb and flow over this static, stubborn rocks in its course, that the margins hold the center.
Good morning, young people and younger people and young at heart people and people who are feeling however you want to feel this morning. Welcome. Oh my gosh, are those new glasses? They look very nice, very cool. Feel free to come up or be cool wherever you want to sit. Oh, would you like to open this morning? Oh, what is that? Oh, this is our wonder box for folks who haven't seen this before. Can I have this? Oh, you want to go sit down now? You can go sit down right there by this friend, right there. Go sit down right there. There you go, see? Oh, that's so great. We're gonna play a game, so I need everyone to sit down, okay? This is my daughter, I'm not being rude. So I wanna know if anyone has ever played a game with friends in school when you were younger or whatever. And when you get together and you start playing a game, what's the first thing you do before you start playing the game? The rules. And before even that, what do you have to do? Yes, but you have to get into some sort of shape, like a crescent, no, an octagon. Well, that's one game. You get into a circle. Circle up, everybody. Circle up. One, that's the easiest way for a teacher to kind of talk to everyone, although it does make them kind of have their back to half the group all the time, which might backfire sometimes. But we get into a circle because sometimes the best games are played in a circle. And so today we're going to play a game where we're not going to all get into a circle because that would be hazardous, but we are going to talk about a game and kind of simulate the game. It's a game that many young people play, but also I think some older people have played. It's called Everybody Who. Does everyone know that game? Everybody Who? No? Okay, well, we're about to learn it. And actually, it's a little bit different. I'm going to add a word. Everybody who loves, okay? And the way we play this, and I think we play this at Peace Camp, which registration is still open for this June. But this is a way to get to know your community, because when we stand around the edge of the circle, we are all at the circumference of the circle, the edge of the circle, and one person stands in the middle, which is called the center of the circle. And that person is looking for, sometimes we say a friend or a neighbor, but we're just going to say everybody who loves, and they'll say something that they love. They'll say, oh, I love pizza. And everybody who loves pizza would get really excited because that person in the middle likes pizza, and they know that about them now. And so what'll happen is they will all get up and run to a different spot in the circle, and hopefully the person in the middle gets outside of the circle before they're the last one, which does kind of feel like winners and losers, but it's part of the game. And don't extend my metaphor too much. But what happens is the last person who's in the middle gets to be the next person. So then they said everybody who loves winter, and then the summer people are like, no way, I'm staying here. And then the winter people all run, and you just keep doing that as a way to get to know each other. What's fun is that it's a great way to get to know each other. It's also a great way to know that sometimes you're in the middle, sometimes you're in the margins, and you move, and sometimes you stay put and you just kind of notice what's happening. But we all get to kind of see each other. This is my magnifying glass. That's why I use this as an object lesson. Okay. And so we're going to do this. We're going to just do it a couple times because I think it is kind of fun. But instead of getting up and moving around, we'll just raise our hands enthusiastically or however level of enthusiasm you wish. Okay. And I'll call on you if I think you're the last one. And you could say the next one and I'll repeat it out loud. But it's very simple. It has a starter. Everyone who loves, and then you fill in the blank. Okay, it can be, doesn't have to be one word, but it can be some amount of words. Okay, so I'll give an example, and if you get that, you raise your hand and keep it up, and you can look around and say, who else is raising their hands? Right? Okay, good. Okay, everyone who loves seeing our children and youth feel so welcome here. All right, Missy, how about you? Everyone who loves being in nature. Oh, God, look, this is a little bit playing to the crowd here. Okay, good. Steve. Oh, spaghetti lovers. Okay. Oh, pretty acceptable noodle here. This is good. Oh, where was the non-noodlers? Okay, Mark. Oh, good old Abe. Wow, wow. We are so conflict avoidant here. This is great. No, okay, Luca. Coffee. All right, where's our tea? Okay, that's a little more controversial. Carol. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. We're getting a little hungry. I see that. Jan. Oh, snake lovers. That whole back row is, or that second to back row is very popular. Anyone up here? You want to do one? Yeah. Oh, plug. Everyone who loves church being here. That's great. um, who else would like to do one? Yeah. What do you want to say? Everybody who loves what? Dogs? Everybody, is that a dog? Everybody who loves dogs. Oh, good. Okay. You have one? Oh, okay. Here's a little more specific, not dogs, but Dog Man, the comic. I need, oh, Dog Man. Okay. There's about 6 or 7. Okay. Excellent. Olive, do you want to do one? Cat Kid. Is that another comic book? Okay. Now we're going. Dog Man's Friend. See, I'm learning so much. Yeah. Tea. Oh, very good. Excellent. All the Brits. Excellent. Any others? Yes. Oh, koalas. Okay. Wow, koalas are more popular than the comic book series of, I know, I'm sorry. I know. Maybe one or, yeah. Oh, any crocheters here? Okay, we might have to do some crocheting classes and stuff. Yes. I like that. And you might want to be open to learning. Yes. Yeah. Oh, you like crocheting too? Okay, excellent. So we're learning a lot about each other. And my guess is the more we get to know each other, not only will we start finding these commonalities, but we'll start feeling comfortable to ask other questions too. Like everybody who likes helping out their parents or cook dinner, helping others. Any helpers? Everybody who likes doing chores. All right. Yeah, I know. Jeez. And as you get to know each other more, you might ask other things like everybody who likes listening to a friend who listens to friends when they're sad, or everybody who wants to help volunteer at the animal shelter sometime, or things like that. or helping those who might be less fortunate at like hot meals. Anyone who would like to do that? So I think as we start this game, sometimes we stay at a lot of that food groups and other things that we like, and shared interests. And then we start going deeper over time. And that's the beauty of being in community, is that you can start at whatever level you're starting at, and then over time you get to know each other even better. So we're going to keep talking about that. Maybe we'll play this game more. We'll sign our, our insurance policies for kids running through and knocking other down people and stuff. But we're going to sing our children and youth off to their classes, because the youth have their last Sunday to prepare for next Sunday. So it's big time. So we're going to sing each other out.
I wrote this reflection and I realized there was absolutely no humor in it. And for that, I apologize. But I just couldn't find any. Oh, that's yours. Let me just, I don't know. Our current government seems to want to move a lot more people out to the margins. Many have been marginalized for many years, but this is exponential for the poor, people with disabilities and dark skin, not born here unless they're white and wealthy, LGBTQ, the sick. Our government and its current machismo doesn't want to help anyone who needs it. It is causing great pain right now. So how does love define our responsibility to the people at the margins? To recognize their humanity at least, but more so to help in all the ways we can. We need to step into the void created by our current government. We also need to push back on our legislators to stop this isolationist greed. We need to do what we can to protect the vulnerable. We need to give money where we can. Many of you will remember Liz and Michael Graven moved to Kenya for Michael to lead the project to build a much-needed hospital for the IU-Kenya partnership. Some of the cost of running that hospital was provided by USAID. It stopped abruptly last month, and employees are working without pay, and they're having trouble keeping the lights on and serving the sick. The US payment system was abolished, and they're running out of hope. We need to put pressure on Congress to reclaim our humanity and do our part in the world, as similar scenarios are happening everywhere. My dear friend Frida Neal used to say that there's only love and fear at the center. I think she had it right. We can be motivated by love to do good and be connected, or we can be motivated by fear and do things that are not very helpful and distract us from what we're here to do. I see love as that stirring of life inside us that makes us do something. Mother Teresa said, not all of us can do great things, but we can all do small things with great love. It's up to each of us to discover what opens us to love. For me, it's trees, meditation, singing, dancing, being in community with loving people. The people and discussions here at UUCCI are a source to replenish and open my heart. When I leave, I can, as we say, take the openness and light into the world. The great magic thing about love is that it is boundless. The more I give it away, the more I have to give. As UUs, we collectively proclaim and strive to keep love at the center. Individually and collectively, we must fill our buckets and take it to those in the margins. Reading Love and Risk by Robert Spirko. Love cannot promise us safety, but we cannot have safety without it. So what do? How do we manage in the absence of guarantees? How do we balance the need for self-protection with what love sometimes demands of us in terms of risk? We must live with no guarantees. We may be called to pay a high price for love. All we can do is be prepared to love as the times require. By contrast, we do know the high cost of living without love: shame, guilt, silence, death. Our leaders can help us understand this dual truth. Ultimately, we need to practice risk. The more we practice, the better our skills and discernment become. We need to prepare for those moments when we have to take action, when the risk of not acting are greater than those of action. We need practice, especially with institutional risk. Many among us might accept a level of personal risk in our love work. Are we also ready to accept institutional risk? That determination takes careful group discernment, but also collective boldness. We have sometimes sheltered our institutions behind institutional risk-taking. It is worth thinking about when those relations might be reversed. By calling us into wider circles of community, love empowers us to act. Any action puts us at risk. The feedback spiral of love, risk, and trust, of relationship and community, becomes the ground for the actions that are necessary for mutual liberation. These actions set the conditions for further change and growth, often regardless of their success or failure. And while we know we will never fully arrive at a perfect, beloved community, we call it into being whenever we accept risk and act in love, stronger and stronger with each call.
For the past few weeks, we have been taking a closer look at what it means to place love at the center of our lives. As Unitarian Universalists, we do not have a common creed or a set of beliefs, but a series of shared values that guide us in our own moral and ethical journeys. Like many times over the past several hundred years of Unitarianism, Universalism, and now Unitarian Universalism, have existed in the United States and beyond, we have found new language that can serve us for this time in our unfolding living tradition. Last fall, we spent 6 weeks exploring our shared UU values: justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. This winter, we turn to focus on the center, to what holds all of these values and all of us together. And what we have said right now is love. Let me share the words as they are written in Article 2 of the bylaws of the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations. Quote, "Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love." End quote. That's the language, the invitation to possibility that we hold with one another, that the power of love can hold us together and remind us of the shared values that we are called to live and promote in the world. For our last Sunday of this sermon series, I want to talk about a very important aspect, well, actually two, that we have not explicitly discussed thus far. I mentioned one of them in the language of the UUA bylaws. It is not about love's purpose, but about love's location in our lives and communities, namely that love is at the center of our shared values. Love is at the center. I think this location is really important, and not just because it is a metaphor to life, to a life of importance and its importance. Like clearly the center or core, the heart or middle, all of these are good ways to convey that love is or should be important to us as Unitarian Universalists. And I think I wouldn't get much pushback on that from you. Love seems like a good enough idea, force, value, energy, or aspiration as any to place at the center of our lives and values. But I want us to spend some time thinking a little more deeply on the implications of that location. As I mentioned in the sermon description for today, one question we might think to ask with this new language is, well, what was previously at the center of Unitarian Universalism? It's a good question. Perhaps one answer is that it has always been at the center, love. But I'm guessing rewriting history would not be a good look for us. Maybe our Universalists always had love at the center, but maybe the Unitarians had some other things on their minds. Rather, there are some great contenders over time that one could argue were at the center at one point or another throughout our Unitarian and Universalist history. And I say that because, as a reminder, the two U's only came together. They only got together 64 years ago in 1961. They're young. Over the last several hundred years, there were various debates in those Unitarian and Universalist histories and changes that unfolded throughout Christianity. And yes, this is a long sentence, because indeed Unitarian Universalism emerged through the trunk of Christianity and the limb of Protestantism and the branch of liberal denominationalism. And we just keep kind of turning left and we're kind of back where we are. But throughout our long history, we have valued certain ideas, beliefs, and commitments over others. It's natural. One of these debates was on the divinity of Jesus. Unitarians ultimately saw Jesus as a prophet and no more the Son of God than any of us are the children of God. In this sense, Jesus was not so much de-centered as a result, but humanity was rather collectively centered, collectively elevated. In time, Unitarians especially emphasized a different Trinity, which took the central position, namely that of freedom, reason, and tolerance. Freedom, reason, and tolerance. These values each expanded the circle of community and possibility to create space for more ideas and people in our interdependent web of existence, which was a later language, but that we still use. One of the results of centering freedom, reason, and tolerance is that it also began to emphasize the centrality of the individual, I would say in some respects over and above the community. In other words, by placing the individual human in the center of the circle with reason, freedom, and tolerance at their side, we in effect push community beyond the center toward ever-expanding circles of concern. This might not sound too bad. Of course, each of us is in the center of our own lives. And of course, we are each in relationship to a wider circle or concentric circles of concern, family, friends, closer friends, circles go further out. But what can happen over time through this supremacy, or at least primacy, of the individual over the community is that the individual can become idle and stagnant. The center don't move. It's centered. It is in one place, one point. Thinking about it, there is only one point that is the center and an innumerable set of locations throughout the circle itself. I think it is important that we come to realize that individuality can only take us so far in this life, and that freedom, reason, and tolerance are noble values, but perhaps not enough for these times in which we live. This is where the centering of love may aid us with these current challenges we face. Love at the center holds our shared values for this chapter of our living tradition. For example, freedom is given more nuance by our value of interdependence, which honors our individuality and our collectivity. Interdependence honors the one and the many. Pluralism, likewise, expands tolerance and other ideas, peoples, and cultures to a wider sense of embrace of the sacred diversity of all existence. This is part of the work we are doing within our UUCCI community, on the interfaith campus as well, and in the wider community. Another impact of placing love at the center over individuality is that it raises what I think is the fundamental question we must consider. If we place love at the center, where does that leave the individual? Can both love and the individual be centered at the same time? My answer is ultimately no. The centering of love requires the decentering of the individual and invites us to travel the radius of the circle towards the margin or boundary or what we have drawn as our circle of concern. In this sense, the center of love calls on us to nurture what I spoke to in January, namely a deeper commitment to resilience, courage, and of course, love itself. One way we can foster more resilience and courage in the name of love is through increasing our relationship and capacity to risk. In our reading this morning, Dr. Robert Spirko reflects on the relationship between love and risk. For those unfamiliar with who this guy is, Spirko was the co-chair of the Article 2 Study Commission, which was the group charged by the UUA General Assembly to guide the process of renewing Article 2 of the UUA bylaws, which includes what led to the new shared values with love at the center. For years, he engaged with thousands of Unitarian Universalists who reflected on our values and commitments as UUs today. And from both his own lived experience and the feedback from those conversations, love and risk were both needing to be involved somewhere in this new articulation of Unitarian Universalism. His reading begins with this admission, quote, "Love cannot promise us safety, but we cannot have safety without it." I do like that. Love cannot promise us safety, but we cannot have safety without it. Spirko understands this at a deep level and firsthand. As he was in the sanctuary on July 27th, 2008, when an armed gunman came into the Tennessee Valley UU Church in Knoxville, Tennessee, and opened fire on a community that the shooter felt was, quote, too cooperative or too supportive of LGBTQ people and was, quote, too liberal. The story goes on that he was quickly subdued by multiple attendees, but not before he had killed 2 people, injured 8, and traumatized an entire congregation, end quote. Spirko recalls a group of people who disarmed the gunman and collectively risked their lives to prevent more harm than that day already entailed. The ripple effect of this shooting continues to be felt, but it was also immediate. From local interfaith partners coming to the aid of the congregation to the wider UUA collectively responding with care and resources, this event was a turning point, another turning point, like I mentioned last week, a turning point in our larger UU story. Perhaps it was when love began moving toward the center. Case in point, it was in the aftermath of this very event that the Side with Love campaign of the UUA, then called Standing on the Side of Love, was conceived of and launched. It has a direct linkage to that event, that what we now say Side with Love social justice advocacy campaign was started. In a UU World article published a year after the shooting in 2009, the Side with Love campaign chair, the Reverend Meg Riley, was quoted saying, quote, "The Knoxville shooting inspired deep thinking about the message of hope that those 2 congregations brought in the wake of tragedy and the theology that was embedded in that hope. We felt that was our good news to share as a faith, and we really wanted to strategically maximize our voice in that way. This is going to be a real grassroots-oriented campaign," she went on to say. "We will be resourcing congregations to take action. We will put much more energy into where there are local leaders whom we can support, who will have the impacts that's needed," end quote. 16 years ago. Indeed, love cannot, quote, indeed, love cannot promise us safety, but we cannot have safety without it, end quote. With love at the center, we are faced with increased risk because for some reason, love is a threat. But our centering and proclaiming of love is worth the practice of risk. From our reading, Spirko writes, quote, the more we practice, the better our skills and discernment become. We need to prepare for those moments when we have to take action, when the risks of not acting are greater than those of action. We need practice, especially with institutional risk, end quote. Where and how do we practice risk, and by extension, the practice of love? Taking the metaphor of the circle, we practice risk and love, not at the center of the circle, but throughout the area of the circle and at the margins or edge or circumference of the circle. If we place love at the center, then we are consciously or unconsciously acknowledging that we are called to move beyond the center, to navigate the radius and back and forth and experience risk as a result, for these can be unknown places. They are beyond ourselves, beyond what we know in here, to what we may come to know out there. To place love at the center, we must discuss the margins, the edge, and the boundaries of our love. I believe in so doing, we will come to better know love itself, to understand love in its intimacy and in its ultimacy, in its proximity, and when it feels distant. And when it feels distant, our hearts and minds might open to feel and wonder, why? Why? Why have we allowed this world, why have we allowed our humanity, ourselves, to divide our access to love, our ability to experience love, touch it, sense it, and be embraced by it? It is noble to draw the circle wide and even wider still, but not if it creates unnecessary degrees of separateness and gaps or voids of connection between the center and the margins. Some distance is to be expected in a world as diverse and big and beautiful as ours. But with love at the center, we are invited to travel. It's like that saying of an incredulous person asking a UU, hey, what do Unitarian Universalists even stand for? And the correct response is not defense, but honesty, and saying, we do not stand for anything. We move. We move. We move toward justice. We move with hope. We travel back and forth from the wellspring of love to the margins where too often the sources of life have grown dry. We move with compassion and understanding of the suffering of others. Or as our children are taught, we move with an open mind, a loving heart, and with helping hands to bless the world enough, and through our actions and lives make it better. So when we are asked to consider loving from the margins, I believe we are ultimately balancing the equation or answering the question of what it means to place love at the center, or for love to hold us and our shared values as Unitarian Universalists. This work of love is risky, and it is not easy. It requires courage and resilience, but it also requires community. And thankfully, in community, which you all have, we are able to experience love in a profound sense, in a way that traverses time and space, culture and tradition, a love that is alive, that is living, and that will not ever leave us. As we are held in that love, may we be willing to travel across the face of this circle, across the face of the earth, this life we have to live. May our movement with love at our backs bring us peace, a deep peace, knowing that the world that we are envisioning and co-creating is one where someday that wondrous love that we sing about will break free of a singular center and will move in a pluralistic way beyond our simple dimensional thinking into a new love where all are celebrated in our diversity, yet held in our sacred oneness. May it be so, and amen.